So after Avengers Infinity War, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp. And while Avengers Infinity War exceeded all my expectations, Ant-Man and the Wasp was a major, major disappointment. Hey everybody, my name is Brandon, aka the Brando Critic, and today we're discussing the abomination known as Ant-Man and the Wasp. I don't like this movie, guys. I know all you Marvel fanboys are gonna hate me after this review, and you probably hate me right now just for saying that, but man, I loved the first Ant-Man movie, and I generally like all Marvel movies. And I haven't seen The Incredible Hulk, and I haven't seen Thor: The Dark World in a while, but I honestly think that Ant-Man and the Wasp might be the worst MCU movie I've ever seen. So in prepping for each review, I don't really go like, oh, how are the characters? How was the story? How was the, production design? How was the villain? I don't just like, I don't break it down like that. I'm talking about what I like and what stands out and then what I don't like about it. How I felt, because I believe that movies should give you an emotion. It should leave a lasting impact. Ant-Man and the Wasp did none of that. Fair warning, terrible pun coming, but it didn't leave a sting. But honestly, with this movie, you can go through like each of the layers of, okay, the story, the characters, the plot points, the villain, the action set pieces, the comedy, and it just all falls flat. And let me count the ways. So let's start off with Scott Lang himself, played by Paul Rudd. I like Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. I loved him in Ant-Man, and I loved him in Captain America: Civil War. But it seems like in that movie, he could take care of himself, right? He was smart, and you could see that when he broke into Michael Douglas's or Hank Pym's house. Like he's talking about like, oh, you ever seen the Titanic? Freezing and all that stuff. He's a smart guy, right? And he can hold his own in a fight with other Avengers. In this movie, I just saw a bumbling idiot, right? He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know how to do things. He's constantly like, well, what are we gonna do, guys? Like, I don't know, like, it's just, he seems like he's along for the ride rather than Ant-Man. It more seems like the Wasp and Ant-Man's just, a bumbling sidekick of the Wasp. No, it should be a team rather than hero sidekick. You know what I'm saying? It seems like Ant-Man was made dumber for the Wasp to look kind of cooler. Like she's the one who's really kicking everybody's ass and Ant-Man's just kind of like... And then Wasp has all the cool blasters and everything, and I mean, I get it, you want her to look cool, but you don't have to dumb down Ant-Man to do that. However, probably the biggest problem I have with this movie is the comedy. And I've talked about comedy in superhero movies before, and especially in MCU movies, and how like everyone in the theater just has to like try to prove their nerd cred by overlapping one another. Like, oh, I got that reference. No, I got that reference. And they try to like outlaugh one another. This theater didn't laugh once, right? Same with me. There's one moment where I kind of chuckled, and that was when Michael Pena is kind of like narrating, and then Ant-Man's like, yo man, I got this really cool suit, and I think that, the Wasp was kind of hot, but I like her like short hairdo better, so like what's going on? Like that thing it's just kind of fun to see because you can clearly tell that the actors are like, nah man, they're kind of doing like they're getting more into it, but that's the only part where I laughed at. The rest of the jokes are so cringeworthy. So I was watching this with one of my buddies and I constantly looked over to him and I said, that's really lame. Or multiple times in this movie I said, I think that's the worst joke I've ever heard in my life. It's one thing for the jokes not to land, but it's another thing for the jokes to make you cringe. Ant-Man and the Wasp has very cringeworthy humor. And if you laughed at it, great. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. For me, it was... However, did this film get saved by the action sequences? Not really. To me, these action sequences just seem like white noise because there's really no stakes. We've seen the Ant-Man technology before in Captain America: Civil War and the first Ant-Man movie, and again, this film doesn't really bring anything new to the table. And to be honest with you, the final car chase is, fairly fun. It is fun to see the car just like drive down, then shrink down like this and go underneath another car, then you see it in the trailer, right? And you see Ant-Man turn like the biggest he's ever been before and kind of like walk in the San Francisco Bay Area. Like that's cool to see, but by that point you don't really care because that leads into another aspect of the movie which just didn't work, was that the story, it just felt like it was to bring in a character for Avengers Infinity War. It didn't feel like it really progressed the movie forward. It didn't feel like there was any stakes. I felt like okay, why am I watching this? Why should I feel invested? You know, okay, we want to get Hank Pym's wife back from the quantum realm. That's about it. So why should I care again? And who's to stop them? The villain? I don't even remember her name. The girl that was like in the quantum realm or had like some quantum, you know, accident when she was a kid and she could like go through walls and stuff. Like, I'm sorry, but this is probably the worst superhero villain I've seen in the entire MCU. And I haven't seen The Incredible Hulk, so I haven't seen Abomination. But like, why should I care? And I know the Dark Elves are pretty bland too, but like, I just, you know, when I see her on screen, I don't feel threatened. I don't feel like, oh, how are we gonna beat this girl? Like, I just didn't care. She wasn't interesting on screen. I could barely remember, I don't even remember her name. Like, that's a problem, guys. If I can't remember the villain's name, why should I care that Ant-Man and the Wasp are going to beat her? You know, I have no clue what her name is. I don't care about her motivation. It just has one scene. This happened to me as a kid, and now I'm going to take revenge on you because something, like, oh, it just, what's the point? And speaking of what's the point, Walter Goggins, whatever his name is, like, he shows up too with his own like arms dealing crime syndicate, whatever it is. Oh, it's so unneeded. We don't need him. We need a villain that we can care about, and it just, having him and then this other chick that's like the morphing through walls lady, it's just, it's pointless. Like, I felt like I'm watching it, I'm like I wanted to leave. I wanted to stand up and leave this movie because it was so freaking boring. So the best way I can describe this movie is that you have a blender, right? So you have a superhero that was interesting in previous movies, but you minus all likability, and then you just put him in the blender. You get a very basic story with no stakes, put that in the blender. An extremely bland, forgettable villain, put that in there. Put in a couple action sequences, just, you know, sprinkle it in there, you know. And then put in a lot of really, really bad jokes. Fire it up the blender, and you have Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I give a 1 out of 5. Now, this is probably gonna be the first movie since Shape of Water that I've reviewed that I really disagree on the majority of people out there. A lot of people on Rotten Tomatoes, on YouTube, on Instagram, on IMDb, most people on those websites agree that this is a fun superhero movie for the summer. Man, I wouldn't recommend this to people who even like the first one. Like, I was so disappointed. I didn't go in with high expectations either. I just thought, you know, Ant-Man and the Wasp, you know, let's go see a superhero movie. It gave me nothing, guys. It gave me absolutely nothing. And if you liked it, great. I wish I was in the same boat as you. In any movie where I want to actually stand up in the movie theater and walk out and not come back, that's a very, very bad sign. I've sat through Ghostbusters, I've sat through Suicide Squad, I've sat through that Ridley Scott movie, The Counselor, which was absolutely terrible. I wanted to walk out of Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's a very, very, very bad thing. So anyways, guys, tell me if I'm crazy down in the comment section down below, and tell me why Ant-Man and the Wasp is the greatest superhero movie ever made. Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you're new and want to see more videos like this, don't worry, I don't shit on every single movie I see. I do give good reviews, quite a lot actually. Definitely hit that like and subscribe button, and thank you again for watching. Take care.